shooting and looting, no blood on the street, no people in danger, no repressing on me. So give me my rights and let me be free. It's going on worldwide. Give me my rights now. Human rights. Give me my rights.
Sudan, a country really plunged into a devastating civil war since April 2023.
Yeah, and the sources we're looking at, they paint an incredibly grim picture.
They really do. It's become one of the world's worst humanitarian catastrophes, and quickly. Our mission today isn't just to, list the horrors, but to analyze this. This global silence around it. The sources call it the ultimate indictment, really, of international priorities.
That silence is deafening.
So let's start with the key players, because this is crucial for understanding everything else. You've got the Sudanese Armed Forces, the OSAF.
Right, led by General Burhan.
And on the other side, the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, led by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Everyone knows him as Haman.
The MD, yeah.
Now, it might look like just a power struggle between these two generals on the surface, but our sources are clear. This is way beyond a political feud. It's the catastrophic collapse of a fragile state. An absolute collapse.
And the human cost, it's just staggering. We're talking, what, over 12 million people displaced now?
12 million. It's the largest displacement crisis on Earth by a significant margin.
Huge. And cities, Khartoum, the capital, El Geneina in Darfur, just reduced to rubble. But it's the nature of the violence that's particularly alarming.
And yes, the reports are. Chilling isn't even the word. Organizations like the UN Human Rights Office, Human Rights Watch, they're documenting mass atrocities.
Targeted atrocities. Specifically, ethnically targeted killings against the Mosleet community in West Darfur.
Exactly.
We're moving past just conflict stats here. The language investigators are using, it's terrifying. Ethnic cleansing. Mass graves, strong signs of acts that fit the definition of genocide.
Which makes the global indifference even harder to understand.
Precisely. It demands attention, yet largely silence. So this sets up our first big question. Who's enabling this? Who is fueling this fire?
Okay, right. Let's unpack the external side of this. The sources, they draw on multiple very credible investigations. Reuters, CNN, UN panels.
Yes, specialist UN panels too.
And they all point pretty consistently toward external material support flowing into the RSF.
And the focus, again and again in these reports, comes back to the United Arab Emirates, the UAE.
The allegations are quite specific.
Very specific. Providing material support, weapons even, to the RSF, not openly, of course.
Right.
It's allegedly delivered through complex networks, intermediaries, bases in the Sahel region, a whole logistical chain.
Now, we absolutely have to state the UAE vehemently denies this.
Vehemently denies it, yes. They state clearly that any shipments are purely humanitarian aid.
But this denial bumps right up against the core legal issue the sources raise: complicity.
And this is where it gets really serious under international law. If a state provides weapons, money, logistics, any kind of material support
To a group like the RSF.
to a group accused, credibly accused, of mass atrocities, potentially genocide, then that state could be legally complicit.
So the support isn't just prolonging the war.
No, it's potentially making external actors party to the actual crimes happening on the ground. That's the argument in the sources.
Which makes you ask why? Why take such a huge risk? What makes Sudan so valuable?
Okay, let's connect the dots geopolitically. Sudan isn't just some isolated conflict zone. It sits right at a critical intersection.
A linchpin, as some call it.
Exactly. First, think Red Sea trade routes. Hugely important for global commerce. Instability there has ripple effects everywhere.
Okay.
Second, and this seems absolutely critical for the RSF specifically, gold. Massive gold extraction.
Tell us more about the gold. This really seems to be the engine driving the RSF, doesn't it?
It's their financial lifeblood. No question. RSF-linked companies control vast gold mining areas, especially in Darfur.
And this gold isn't just staying put.
Oh, no. It's smuggled out, traded internationally. It gives the RSF a self-funding stream that completely bypasses normal financial controls or sanctions.
So they don't need external state budgets in the same way.
Precisely. It's a faction funding itself through a globally traded commodity. So the global demand for gold, indirectly, maybe even directly, finances this mass violence.
And then there's the bigger strategic picture, right? Foreign powers wanting a foothold.
Yes, the expanding military and strategic footprints in Africa. You've got Russia's presence, formerly Wagner. You have U.S. AFRICOM interests. Egypt has deep historical ties and concerns. Other Gulf states, too.
All vying for influence.
Correct. And the core argument in these reports is that foreign powers are essentially using both the SA and the RSF as proxies, competing for regional dominance through them.
And history tells us where that leads.
It tells us civilians always pay the price. Always. When powerful states play proxy games, it's the local population that suffers catastrophically.
So these dynamics, these geopolitical games, they aren't exactly new. And the sources argue that the way the world is reacting, or not reacting, has some really troubling historical echoes.
Yes, this is a fascinating and deeply disturbing part of the analysis. The sources draw specific parallels to past situations to explain the current indifference, starting with apartheid South Africa.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about the apartheid era. You had systematic brutality, disenfranchisement, forced removals, state violence against Black South Africans. The evidence was undeniable.
Absolutely clear.
Yet, what did many powerful Western governments prioritize?
Economics.
Economics, minerals, trade, strategic positioning in the Cold War. They looked past the human rights abuses to protect their economic and geopolitical interests.
And the link to Sudan today is the gold again.
It's that economic driver, precisely. The RSS controls and profits from Darfur's gold, trading it internationally. And much of the world seems willing to look the other way, or at least not make it a deal breaker. Just like with South African diamonds or minerals back then, economic interests seem to be outweighing moral or legal concerns about mass atrocities.
It's a chilling parallel.
And that economic calculation often gets dressed up in political justifications. Which brings us to the second analogy, Rhodesia under Ian Smith.
Okay, Rhodesia, how does that fit?
The parallel here, according to the sources, isn't so much about the specific racial ideology, but about the logic of power used, both by those committing the violence and by their external supporters.
The logic of power. Can you explain that a bit more? What's the calculus?
Okay, so the group committing the violence, whether it was Smith's regime suppressing the majority population then, or the RSF now, they don't call it atrocities or genocide. They frame it as maintaining order, ensuring stability, fighting insurgents, necessary measures.
Right, the language of necessity.
Exactly. And then, crucially, the external powers or sympathizers who are providing support or even just diplomatic cover, they echo this. They frame their involvement or lack of condemnation as a strategic necessity, maybe to prevent wider chaos, secure resources, counter a rival's influence.
So they adopt the language of stability to mask what might actually be complicity.
That's the argument. The international community often knows better, but hides behind cautious diplomatic language instead of calling it what it is. Moral clarity gets lost in translation.
It's less about ideology, more about rationalizing self-interest.
Precisely. And this pattern, this tendency towards silence or euphemism in the face of brutality, leads us to maybe the most direct and troubling parallel in the source material. The genocide against the ISIC in Somalia.
Somalia, between 1987 and 1989. Tell us about the brutality there.
The sources are graphic. The Somali dictator Siad Barre systematically targeted the ISIC clan. His regime used immense indiscriminate force, bombing cities like Hargeisa flat from the air. Mass killings, mass graves. Academic research estimates up to 200,000 ISIC civilians were killed.
A horrific toll. And the key lesson the sources draw from this.
The world was silent, profoundly, actively silent while it was happening. It was only really acknowledged after the fact, after the destruction was essentially complete.
So a pattern emerges.
A terrifyingly consistent pattern. Genocide isn't something that just explodes, it's a process. And the world often only recognizes it once it's too late, once it has succeeded. We saw precursors with the Janjaweed, the RSF's earlier form in Darfur back in the 2000s. The world wrung its hands then too, and now we're seeing the same trajectory, perhaps even worse, in 2024.
Which brings us right back to today and the question of accountability. If this pattern is repeating, where are the institutions meant to stop it? The UN, for instance.
Yeah, the sources really dig into this institutional failure. Let's start with the UN. Okay, yes, they've issued warnings. UN officials, special rapporteurs, they've used strong language, described potential genocide.
But warnings aren't protection.
Exactly. As the sources bluntly put it, statements have never stopped a bullet.
So what's stopping the UN from doing more than just issuing statements? What are the structural blocks?
They're deep-seated. First, the Security Council. It's often paralyzed by veto politics. The need for agreement among the 5 permanent members, the US, UK, France, Russia, China, means any strong action, like a serious arms embargo or a robust peacekeeping mission, can be blocked if it clashes with just one permanent member's interests.
Geopolitics trumping action again?
Pretty much. Second, even when sanctions are agreed, enforcement is often weak. And third, crucially, the UN has no army of its own. It depends entirely on member states volunteering troops, resources, funding for any intervention.
And few are stepping up for Sudan.
Very few seem willing to take the political risk, let alone the physical one. So the UN often ends up documenting the crisis, being a witness, rather than an effective actor preventing it.
Okay, so if the UN is struggling, what about the African Union, the AU? Their whole principle is African solutions to African problems.
And this is where the sources highlight a really stark and frankly disappointing contrast with the past.
How so?
The AU and its predecessor, the OAU, they took a very firm moral stand against apartheid South Africa. They were clear, unified, and bold against the illegal regime in Rhodesia. They set a precedent for intervention based on principle.
So where is that moral clarity, that boldness today regarding Sudan? We're not seeing AU peacekeepers deployed, are we? Mediation seems fragmented.
We're not. And the analysis points to a couple of key reasons for the AU's relative inaction now. One is fear of setting a precedent for intervention in what many member states see as internal conflicts. Many have their own internal fragilities.
You don't want intervention becoming the norm.
Right. And second, there's the complex web of diplomatic ties. Some AU members might be close to states potentially implicated in fueling the conflict or reliant on them, which ties their hands politically.
So the result is inaction.
Largely, yes. And the sources argue this sends a truly chilling message, that, in practice, African lives are less politically valuable than diplomatic relationships.
Devastating assessment. So, okay, we have institutional paralysis. We have external powers fueling the conflict for their own reasons. Let's try and synthesize. What are the core drivers of this global indifference, according to the reports?
The sources boil down to three main overlapping factors that seem to override human rights concerns. First, straightforward economic interests.
Money talks.
It shouts, apparently. Prioritizing the flow of gold, keeping Red Sea trade moving, securing investments, these seem to trump accountability for mass murder, profit over people.
Okay, number one, economics. Number two,
geopolitical rivalry. Sudan isn't seen primarily as a nation of 45 million people suffering. It's viewed as a chessboard.
a strategic battleground.
Exactly. The alleged UAE role, U.S. strategic interests, Russia's maneuvering, Egypt's concerns. It becomes a theater for regional power plays, and the Sudanese people are just caught in the middle.
And the third factor,
Third, and sadly quite pragmatically, humanitarian fatigue. Or maybe bandwidth limitations. The world is dealing with other massive, high-profile crises, Ukraine, Gaza specifically.
media attention is finite. Aid budgets are stretched.
Right. And Sudan, tragically, seems to be falling off the radar simply because the world's capacity to absorb and respond to horror is overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's competing for attention and resources and losing.
Economics, geopolitics, fatigue, that combination. It leads directly to this quote you find in the sources
Yeah.
from a Sudanese civil society leader. It just stops you in your tracks.
It does. What was it again?
Sudan is dying in darkness.
Yeah. Dying in darkness. That sums it up perfectly.
So where does this leave us? What's the immediate future look like based on this analysis?
Bleak. Extremely bleak. We've mentioned the 12 million displaced again, the largest crisis globally. But now famine isn't just emerging. It's here. It's happening.
A whole generation potentially lost. The state itself may be irrevocably broken.
Very likely. And the sources stress the colossal risk if the world stays on this passive path, just issuing statements. Sudan could very well become another Somalia of the 90s, another Syria of the 2010s.
Or, God forbid, another Rwanda.
That's the ultimate fear. History is crystal clear on this. Genocide is a process. It builds. It's observable. It doesn't just happen overnight. We're seeing the stages play out.
And the message from Sudanese people, quoted in these reports.
It's incredibly clear and poignant. They don't need apologies in 10 years. They don't need commissions of inquiry after the fact. They need action now. Tangible, present action.
Sudan is a test, isn't it?
A profound test of international conscience, yes. If the world stood by during Rhodesia, if it was silent while the Isaac were being slaughtered, and if that same silence prevails now over Sudan, the sources conclude quite starkly that we've learned absolutely nothing. Zero.
So we leave you, the listener, with this final thought to wrestle with. Given everything we've discussed, the gold, the proxy wars, the institutional failures, the historical echoes, what does it actually take? What is the threshold that has to be crossed for a crisis like Sudan's to shift from being just another geopolitical problem on a map to becoming an unavoidable moral imperative for the world? Thank you.
Shooting and looting, no blood on the street, no people in danger, no repressing on me. So give me my rights and let me be free. It's going on worldwide. Give me my rights now.